I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer for capitalism. I suspected I was just part of the racket all the time. Now I am sure of it.
The man who's responsible for that quote is none other than Major General Smedley Butler, the official racketeer for capitalism, a professional gangster at the service of big business, Wall Street and the bankers. Major General Smedley Butler, a man who had put order and chaos in various countries, and had helped spread imperialism all over the world. Smedley Butler had spoken to medias, conservative newspapers and magazines, and had published a book to tell us why wars are made. Reading the title of his book, War is a Racket, should be enough to make us understand the very ideology of this man. But our investigation led us to believe that Smedley Butler was quite a complex individual. Smedley Butler is a man who had helped installing and defending despotic regimes all over the world, including in Haiti. A man who had fought and had destroyed the Cacos, the Haitian resistance group against the American occupation in Haiti from 1915 to 1934. Let's find out about this complex man, disclosing complex mechanisms by which he had caused a great deal of harm to our beloved Haiti during the American occupation. At the time of his death on June 21, 1940, Major General Smedley Darlington Butler, also known as the Fighting Quaker, was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history. He was the only person to be awarded a Marine Corps Brevet Medal and a Medal of Honor for 2 separate military actions. He had also become an unrelenting voice against the business of war. Smedley Darlington Butler was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania, on July 30, 1881. He joined the U.S. Marine Corps as a second lieutenant in May 1898. He was assigned to USS New York and participated in the Spanish-American War just before his 17th birthday. After briefly discharged, he returned to the Marines as a first lieutenant in April 1899 and received orders to the Marine Battalion at Manila, Philippine Islands. In June 1900, during the China Relief Expedition, he took part in the Battle of Tientsin where he was severely wounded. In July, Butler was promoted to captain by brevet rank for his distinguished conduct in that battle. Returning to the U.S. in April 1901, he served at Marine Barracks, League Island, Philadelphia Navy Yard, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Butler would become a very important man, an important soldier. He helped developing U.S. imperialism all over the world. He helped invading and plundering Honduras, Nicaragua, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and more. He earned his medals of honor in Mexico and Haiti. We will come back later to the plundering of Haiti, where Butler served unscrupulously capitalism against the very vital interests of the First Black Republic. He then served in China from 1927 to 1929. In the years between, Butler helped the U.S. seize the Philippines and the land for the Panama Canal. Butler was also a pioneer of the militarization of police. He helped in the creation of client police forces across Latin America, including in the Haitian gendarmerie put up. Then, he introduced those tactics to U.S. cities during a 2-year period running the Philadelphia police during Prohibition. According to the journalist Jonathan Katz, Smedley Butler had been involved in many coups and had overthrown governments and protected friendly client ones around the world on behalf of some of the U.S. bankers, lawyers, and businessmen. He was a veteran involved in nearly every overseas conflict back to the war against Spain in 1898. Was he really convinced to sign up for America's first overseas war of empire on the promise of ending Spanish tyranny and imperialism in Cuba? Or was he already a racketeer for capitalism back then? Jonathan Katz taught us that
Butler knew what most Americans did not, that in all those years, he and his Marines had destroyed democracies and helped put into power the Hitlers and Mussolinis of Latin America. Dictators like the Dominican Republic's Rafael Trujillo and Nicaragua's soon-to-be leader Anastasio Somoza. Men who would employ violent repression and their U.S.-created militaries to protect American investments and their own power. He had done so on behalf of moneyed interests like Citibank, J.P. Morgan, and the Wall Street financier Grayson M.P. Murphy.
Well loved by his peers, President Roosevelt's cousin, Theodore himself, was said to have called Butler the ideal American soldier. Over the course of his career, He had received the Army and Navy Distinguished Service Medals, the French Order de l'Étoile Noire, and in the distinction that would ensure his place in the Marine Corps Pantheon, the Medal of Honor twice. Butler was also known for his leadership and commitment to the welfare of the men under his command. He had proved it, for example, on July 20, 1932, when, as a Major General, Smedley Butler had offered support for nearly 16,000 veteran bonus marchers camped in Washington. Addressing them, he urged them to stay mobilized until the bonus has been paid. How can a man be so loyal and protective to his fellow Americans and so cruel to the rest of the world? All part of the complexity of the man. Butler rose quickly through the ranks to become, at age 48, one of the youngest major generals. Prior to the Second World War, Butler had uttered some criticism against fascism and Nazism. He was reprimanded for telling an inimical story about Italy's leader Benito Mussolini. Facing court-martial, he never apologized to the Italian dictator. In 1931, Butler retired from the military. By then, he was starting to question U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts. He had come to the belief that wars in general and the First World War in particular was business, a really profitable business at that. War is a business for the few and at the expense of thousands of lives. By then, consciousness started to play a part in that man's decision, adding to the complexity of his character. Butler would think of himself as a cog in the war machine of imperialism. Imagine the internal conflict for this man. If Butler wasn't a fascist, he had on purpose led some people in America and worldwide to believe he was one. Why? Because somewhere in America and in the world some people trusted him to be a very reliable American fascist, and they will soon contact him for a very serious project. Was it precisely because he had started to question U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts? Soon, he will go a step further with the publication of his book, War is a Racket. In 1935, Butler published a short book about the alliance between business and the armed forces, under the narrative of war being a business that had enriched a lot of people to the detriment of human lives. He called it War is a Racket. War is a Racket grew out of a series of speeches Butler had given. In that booklet, Butler wrote the following.
In the World War I, a mere handful garnered the profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War. How many of these war millionaires shouldered a rifle? The general public shoulders the bill. And what is this bill? Newly placed gravestones, mangled bodies, shattered minds. For a great many years, as a soldier, I had a suspicion that war was a racket. Not until I retired to civil life did I fully realize it. Now that I see the international war clouds gathering, as they are today, I must face it and speak out.
In 5 short chapters, he would demonstrate that
war is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious.
In Chapter 1, called War is a Racket, he would demonstrate that
it is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives.
Who makes the profits? He asked in Chapter 2. And the answer is an oligarchy. Big business involved in powder, leather, nickel, steel, copper, etc.
And let us not forget the bankers who financed the Great War. If anyone had the cream of the profits, it was the bankers.
Who pays the bills? He asked in Chapter 3. And the answer is a very populist one.
We all pay them in taxation.
Now, how to smash this racket? He asked in Chapter 4. The answer is even more surprising.
But there is a way to stop it. It can be smashed effectively only by taking the profit out of war. The only way to smash this racket is to conscript capital and industry and labor before the nation's manhood can be conscripted. 1 month before the government can conscript the young men of the nation, it must conscript capital and industry and labor. Let the officers and the directors and the high-powered executives of our armament factories and our munitions makers and our shipbuilders and our airplane builders and the manufacturers of all the other things that provide profit in wartime, as well as the bankers and the speculators, Be conscripted to get $30 a month, the same wage as the lads in the trenches get.
War is a Racket will grow to become a bestseller. Butler will become a lecturer and a guest in front of whatever group wanted to hear his views. Though he faced severe criticism, Butler was firm in his beliefs about war, U.S. imperialism, and a growing pro-fascist movement. He spoke frankly and honestly about his experiences and opinions, and was very popular with the American public. Today, conspiracy theorists worship his ideas and the way he tackled big business and war activists. He would finish his book by saying in Chapter 5, "To hell with war," and that resonates in different areas of the American society and worldwide. In 1934, Butler presented himself before the House Un-American Activities Committee (WAC) to expose a conspiracy against the government. He had been recruited by a group of wealthy pro-fascists who tried to hire him in a coup to dethrone President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The man that organized the plot was a bond salesman by the name of Gerald C. McGuire, a 37-year-old Navy veteran with a head Butler thought looked like a cannonball. The plotters, who called themselves the Society to Maintain the Constitution, are linked to a pro-fascist French organization called La Croix de Fer, Fiery Cross, a political organization and association of French World War veterans and paramilitaries, founded on November 26, 1927, by Maurice de Hartouy and directed in 1931 by Colonel François de la Roque. But before doing harm, the Croix de Feu had taken part in a riot of mainly far-right and fascist groups that had tried to storm the French legislature, and the insurrection was stopped by police. More than 15 people, mostly rioters, were killed.
Then he made his proposal. The Marine would lead 500,000 veterans in a march on Washington, blending the Croix de Feu's assault on the French legislature with the March on Rome that had put Mussolini's fascisti in power in Italy a decade earlier. They would be financed and armed by some of the most powerful corporations in America, including DuPont, the nation's biggest manufacturer of explosives and synthetic materials.
Explained Jonathan Katz. The purpose of the coup was to stop Roosevelt's New Deal, the president's program to end the Great Depression, a program which they found too socialist. Butler took time to gather intelligence about the plot and took it to Congress. Butler's assertions were not aggressively pursued, and the matter was largely dismissed. However, an internal report to Congress from WAC confirmed the veracity of the plot. On January 3, 2022, journalist Jonathan Katz wrote an article under the title of "The Plot Against American Democracy That Isn't Taught in Schools," in which he tells the little-known story of Butler's 1934 disclosure of a business plot to overthrow the Roosevelt administration. Jonathan Katz also draws parallels between United States of America political tensions then and now. The article is available on the website of Americans Who Tell the Truth. In January 2022, Jonathan Katz released a book in which he related all that. The book is named Gangsters of Capitalism: Smedley Butler, the Marines, and the Making and Breaking of American Empire. Yet, stated Jonathan Katz, Butler would spend the last decade of his life trying to keep the forces of tyranny and violence he had unleashed abroad from consuming the country he loved. Butler called himself a gangster. Indeed, Haiti had been looted. Smedley Butler ran as Republican candidate for Senate in 1932 and wasn't elected. He died at Naval Hospital in Philadelphia on June 21, 1940. The Boston, Massachusetts chapter of Veterans for Peace is named the Smedley D. Butler Brigade, and he is featured in the documentary called The Corporation. So, as you can see, Smedley D. Butler was a very complex man with detractors and admirers. In Haiti, he had no admirer, or should have none, since we played a huge role in the process that led to Haiti being robbed by the Americans. The journalist Jonathan Katz had documented that reality for us, starting by saying the following.
I first encountered the other side of Butler's legacy in Haiti, after I moved there to be the correspondent for the Associated Press. To Haitians, Butler is no hero. He is remembered by scholars there as the most mechan, corrupt, or evil of the Marines. He helped lead the U.S. invasion of that republic in 1915 and played a singular role in setting up an occupation that lasted nearly 2 decades. Butler also instigated a system of forced labor, the corvée, in which Haitians were required to build hundreds of miles of roads for no pay, and were killed or jailed if they did not comply. Haitians saw it for what it was, a form of slavery, enraging a people whose ancestors had freed themselves from enslavement and French colonialism over a century before.
Butler was never shy of telling what he had done to the world, the crimes he had committed. Jonathan Katz also reported that, late in 1935, Butler would go further, declaring in a series of articles for a radical magazine,
"I helped make Mexico and especially Tampico safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909-12. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. I helped make Honduras right for American fruit companies in 1903. In China, in 1927, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went its way unmolested. During those years I had, as the boys in the back room would say, a swell racket. I was rewarded with honors, medals, promotion. Looking back on it, I feel I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate in 3 city districts. We Marines operated on 3 continents."
Heroes for some are devils for others. This is a lesson of life. The issue is that Haiti is full of racketeers for capitalism nowadays. He became in August 1916. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel and became the commandant of the Gendarmerie de Haiti. For his work that most would find shameful, Butler was awarded his second Medal of Honor.